How are we doing, Kansas Jayhawks fans? This is your host, Nick Rondeau, bringing at you with some Jayhawks Daily content. And we've got a Victory Monday. So fantastic. Gotta love how that Kansas team played. Such a fun performance. Means a little bit more when it's a rival, so we're going to break it all down and get into it. And I just want to thank you guys all so much for tuning in. If you haven't already and like some Kansas Jayhawks content, please subscribe down below to the Jayhawks Daily. And, we produce a lot of content, breaking down some games, previewing some games, getting updates for what's going on in the Kansas universe this year, next year, who knows. Just want to thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we're going to keep going into it. So, yes, Kansas cruising to 15-5 on the season, beating K-State 86-62. Just an excellent performance all around. A couple of great players definitely to shout out, but everyone kind of relied on each other. This was a team performance, and it was close for a while. Halftime score of 37-35 going in. It really, we weren't making that next step. We would get maybe with an 8-point lead, 9-point lead, and we just let them right back in. And there was no real, I would say, carrying away until that second half started, and just some major plays were coming out. It's just such fun performance to watch. Obviously Melvin Council at the end with some fantastic player behavior, stuff that you're really excited to see from, one of your star players, and just as an exciting performance because that was something that we really needed out of him. But super awesome. As you can see, the 20-point victory in their home feels pretty good, but you got to shout out two guys, and that's going to be Melvin Council and Flory Badunga. I mean, they really, really, really figured out that two-man game. They did it to a T. I mean, how many times did we see them, execute the pick and roll with a lob flawlessly? Too many to count. Too many to count. And let's break it down. It was honestly just excellent stat lines from them. We're looking at Melvin Council, 17 points, 12 assists, 7 rebounds, 1 block, and a steal even. And, some of it came at the end. He definitely, became more aggressive, but this is what we needed. In a game with no Darren Peterson, we needed Melvin Council to be very aggressive, to attack the rim. And it opened up so many avenues. Him attacking the rim allowed for a great opportunity for Flory to come from the backside and, get a lot of those lob threats. There was a lot of, great lob opportunities. This is why Flory Badunga had such an amazing game, going 21 points on 10 of 13 shooting with 10 rebounds, 3 blocks. Just such a fun performance from him. He had some, beautiful poster dunks. These were some of the, he even had, I think of the 13, one of them hit the back iron, what I believe should have been a foul. But he just looked so good out there, super smooth, the exact center that we were hoping for, and just in a game where we needed it. We kind of said that they were going to come out hot. They're a talented team, and they didn't have incredible amount of height. Well, that Darren Buka, their 7-2 player, he actually got decent play. He played 26 minutes. I believe that's the most he's played on the season. So he got 11 rebounds, but only 1 block. Flory just kind of had his way with him, but he was definitely put in there specifically to try to help on the defensive side, with Flory Badunga just being an absolute menace. And, it was fascinating. Also, that Buka, 8 offensive rebounds of his 11 rebounds. So he was a lot of, quick putbacks and whatnot. But we just kind of neutralized a lot of their, players in a way. It's great to see at least, these two performances. I mean, you can see it up on the screen how excellent they were. But it speaks to the defense, really. I mean, they really did an excellent job. P.J. Haggerty had only 23 points. Sounds like a lot. I said hold him to 20, but on 6 of 17 shooting, he was 10 for 12 at the free throw line. It was free throws for him. That's what he had to do to score. He only had 4 assists. He was not able to pass the ball very well because we were collapsing. We were figuring out how to switch at the right time with the big man, with the guard, and everyone just played with a lot of intensity. Jaden Dawson even got 14 minutes and, only took 1 shot, but I liked what I was seeing, just the effort level, sliding, staying with everybody. It was a defensive, battle, and second half, it definitely turned out that way, holding K-State to 27 points. That's more of what I'm talking about. Their 3-point percentage, if they were 10 of 29, that's fine. But when they shoot 34% from the field, that's more of what we care about. It was excellent paint presence. Bryson Tiller had an excellent day, especially on the offensive end, shooting 6 of 8 with 16 points. Just really excellent performance from him. Everyone was doing their part. He also grabbed 7 rebounds. Trey White hit getting from the free throw line again, hit a 3 as well. And I could call out so many players. That's the thing. Like it was just such a great performance from every player on this team. Elmarko Jackson off of the bench with 27 minutes went 5 for 7 with 19 points, 5 rebounds. He was attacking the rim. That's why he was getting fouled. But 2 for 3 from 3-point land as well. Just such a well done job by Bill Self and his crew to go into a place where they've struggled. And, they even talked about it in the pressers afterwards. They said that, Melvin Council said that they were watching videos of, the K-State fans storming the courts over the past years. It hurts. That's why when you see a little bit of energy and, the dominant kind of exclamation points at the end, Melvin Council's giving them a little business on the court. That's something you got to do because he was just disappointed that, obviously he hadn't been a part of those teams. No one really, I guess Elmarko was his freshman year, Jamari McDowell as well then, but Flory last year. But, with less people staying, tenured players, you got to make these transfer players that kind of show up. You got to make them buy in. And it seems like Bill's done that. And, Bill spoke about it as well, kind of just saying, we have an opportunity. We have an opportunity. Like, I'm here for life. You guys may just be here for a year, but do you really want that memory? And I don't think anyone did. They did such a great job of, erasing those memories from a fan's perspective, just in such a fun way because he asked a lot of his starters. He asked a lot. All of them playing over 30 minutes. I guess besides Jamar McDowell, Marco Jackson really shined more, but, he didn't go deeper than 7. We didn't see Cole Rosario. We didn't see Paul Mbia. We didn't see Samis. We didn't see Giangala. But it worked. The recipe's working. You can't get too mad, with how it's working. But that kind of brings me into my next point is, do we have potentially a 3-point problem? We've seen this over the years. We haven't always been excellent at the 3-point ball. With a guy like Hunter Dickinson, it's tough to, you're going to want some inside close shots. Floor Badunga, it's a similar recipe. We like that. We shot 4 of 16 as a team from the 3-point line this game. Over our last 3 games, 17 of 52. That's about a 32% 3-point percentage. It's not terrible, but it's not great. As a team, for 3-point makes, we're ranking in the bottom third of the country. I believe we are at 239 for 3 points a game. And it's disappointing because that's such a big part of this game, and that it's such a big part to kind of get back into games. It just shows if we ever kind of get out of it, how do we get back in it? And we saw that TCU game. We saw it takes a little bit of everything. It takes and ones, it takes some threes, and they saw that they have some fight, but we've got some tough games going up. And yes, I can also say, don't worry. I don't think it's that big of a problem because over our last 3 games, we're 3-0. It's clearly not that big, when we're finding the recipe elsewhere. But I do think, it takes to a point because looking around this league, there are some pretty good teams and there are some pretty good 3-point shooting teams. And people are looking, I don't want to say dominant, but they're looking really good. And this is what we're supposed to be doing against teams like this. You see around the league, Arizona, absolutely pummeling Utah. We're going to be playing Utah soon. BYU absolutely pummeling Utah. We've got Arizona pummeling West Virginia. These teams are putting up good performances. Everyone had to have tuned in and see that Texas Tech game where they pulled away with a 4-point victory at home over Houston. It's not easy, and it also doesn't help when in those games, we're seeing monster performances. Yes, monster performances. We're seeing freshman Kingston Flemings for Houston put up 42 points. We're seeing freshman A.J. DeBonsa getting ready for his matchup with hopeful Darren Peterson on this Saturday with 43 points. Just crazy performances from these guys. Milan Momcilovic with 29 points for Iowa State. This league, they're producing some stars for sure, with big monster performances. Braden Burries for Arizona, 22 and 7. They're playing well and they're winning, and it's translating to a lot of winning. I think people could say similar. I think Melvin Council had an excellent performance. People are going to remember that. But as a team, everyone's looking really solid, and it looks like people are starting to finally tune the teams out. There's the tier, of the bottom tier of Big 12. There's the middle tier, and there's the top tier. We got to figure out which one we're going to want to play in, because no one else is really stumbling right now. That Iowa State game, that was a big win for us. They've kind of recorrected after one other stumble after that, but they've clearly recorrected at this point. I'm back on course. But BYU continuing their run of, I don't want to say dominance, but in a way dominance. They're 5-1 in conference. They're bowling through teams, including DeBonsa putting up record performances. Arizona obviously still has not faltered at 20-0. I think that Texas Tech, win was huge for them because, they had stumbled a couple games, but 6-1 in conference and a huge home victory for them. In Houston, that was their first conference loss. 5-1 in conference, 17-2 overall. Big 12 is business this year. I think there's over 6 or 7 teams that are top 25 in the net. That means you're going to have, a very, not just proud program, but a lot of proud programs that are really putting on, their best at the time where it's needed. We're at the end of January. We're going into February. March is right around the corner, and you've got to be playing your best basketball in February come March, because we know we need Darren Peterson. We know we need Darren Peterson for this to be, a title contender team. For that banner to be touched with some excellent letters to add another championship to us, we need full strength. But how are we going to get there? Are we going to, we got some very tough games. We've got, obviously, BYU coming up this Saturday. We're going to Lubbock to play Texas Tech. We've still got both Arizona games. Like, there is a path. It just means, do we have full confidence in this team going around? Is there a three-point problem? Is, playing down to your competition for the entire first half against K-State, is that a problem? And I'm going to say, I don't think it is, because BYU is playing down to Utah the entire first half. Arizona was the only team that I would say really throttled the entire way. But people have down games, and, again, this conference, these are not sorry teams. These are teams that just caught a better team on the wrong night. And this Kansas team, I'm feeling good about him. I'm feeling great about Flory Badunga. He's playing some of the best basketball of his career right now. Very much established himself as a top, player for us, getting to be the tops in the conference. Melvin Council continues to shine when Darren Peterson is out, which is exactly what we need. Trey White's got to continue to show up. He puts the exact performance we need out of him in something like this. He couldn't exactly get the three ball to be falling. He couldn't get his shots up. He was getting defended too well. Well, I'm going to get to the free throw line. I'm going to establish something else and just, kind of create some energy. And the other guys got to continue. El Marco showed up for us off the bench. Bryson Tiller showed up again. Can they show up when Darren Peterson's playing? Can they show up when the big lights are on them, not just the, Manhattan lights of Bramlage Coliseum? We need Houston-type situation. We need Arizona undefeated. We need to continue. A lot of games left, a lot of great basketball left. I'm excited to break it all down and preview it with you guys. Go through it. I'm super excited for this Kansas team in this coming stretch. If you guys are excited, please continue to tune in. Please let me know in the comment section below any questions you might have. Anything about, how are you feeling about this team? How are we feeling with this upcoming schedule? Talk about some of the performances we saw from either Kansas players or just around the league, anything like that. Please, if you do like it, subscribe to this channel below. But I appreciate everything so much. This content's for you guys, and hope everyone has a great rest of their week. Rock Chalk, go Jayhawks.